First of all, thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here. So, I chose this topic called the Fulcrum Effect. Basically, how to make some small extra effort which will result in a big extra output that you have. And the tools provide that option for us to get that acceleration in the output, but we need to have the background to make the most out of these tools. Okay, we have LinkedIn, you can create a LinkedIn profile very quickly, but how do we make the most out of it? You can create a Facebook account in 2 minutes, you can start a blog in 5 minutes, but what is the background thinking that needs to be there so that we can capitalize on it? So I'll start with a small story. Last 3 weeks ago, Kavita is my wife, Sumuk is my son, all of us were in the tech museum, and I saw this game. It's a pinball game, and the kids, there were 4 kids who were playing this, and they were really engrossed in the game, and they were just trying to sort of win. And the objective of the game was very simple, is each kid had a ball and they had to get it to the center of the maze. And it was taking insanely long for anyone to get their ball in the center of the maze. And all of you are smart here, so you will guess why it is, because everybody is trying to maneuver their ball into the center of the maze. Like Mary here was trying to do that, and John there was trying to do that, and while Mary was trying to get the ball into the center of the maze, John, he was not trying to stop Mary from getting her ball into the maze, but he was just trying to get his ball into the maze. It just affected how Mary could get her ball into the maze. So for me, this pinball game is like the marketplace. So you think of it like this is the marketplace, and you are all the players in the marketplace, and you are trying to take care of your concern. Your concern is to get the ball into the center of the maze, while other players in the marketplace are trying to take care of their concern. Their concern is what? Getting their ball into the center of the maze. Just so happens that while they are doing their stuff, it takes longer for your ball to get to the center of the maze. So what can we learn from this is how the marketplace is going to be. In fact, if anything, it will become a more complicated pinball game where we need to work harder, or we need to think differently. Probably there is a partnering. Mary should partner with John and say, you know what, we both need to get our balls into the center of the maze. What can we do together? Maybe we should cooperate here a little bit. And it gets complex when it is a recession. Why? Because of 24. Now, this is not the Jack Bauer kind of 24. It is the 24 hours that we have in our life. Every day we only have 24 hours in a day, and some people get a lot out of it, some people could struggle with it. And why is this? Because in those 24 hours, we are only doing 2 things. Either we are delivering what we are supposed to deliver, that's the first thing that we do, or we are preparing to deliver. Like this particular meeting, we are preparing to deliver what we are promised to the marketplace. And it so happens that we are now also supposed to participate in social media. We are so busy trying to deliver or preparing to deliver. Now somebody comes and says, hey, why are you not doing something on YouTube? Your competitor is doing that. And then are you not Twittering? So you must be in the old school. You need to start doing that. And then you are thinking, first of all, I didn't have time to do my work, and then preparing to do my work. Where will I find time to just start all these social networking tools? And there are like hundreds of them. There are 300 networks like Ning, and like Facebook, probably a dozen different applications. So where is the time? And this is how a typical day becomes. Basically, it will be a roller coaster ride. You start and you don't know where it ended. You have a plan, you have a weekly plan, and by the time you get through the day, so many more things come in, and then you don't have any more time. So what the world expects is that you move fast. The competition is moving fast, and then you got to move fast. Whatever is the case, you got to move fast. But if you think about how it happens in the nature, everything evolves in the long term. A baby takes about 9 months to come out, and then a tree takes a few years to bear fruits. Anything in the nature happens in the long term. But what the world expects is that you quickly do something. So the key point to remember is I'm saying long term, but I'm not saying slow. It does not happen slowly. It just takes long time. So the patience that is required is what gets forgotten. So how do we get out of this is by using our networks. So there is only 24 hours in a day. People want you to move fast. You also have to participate in social networks. There is a lot that's happening. What is the leverage point is the people. How do we, there are people that are there. How do we work with them so that both of us can take care of our concerns and in a manner that all of us win together? And when it comes to people, day in and day out, there is only one thing that happens is that you make requests of people, that you ask somebody to do something for you and they ask you to do something for them. And when you make a request, there are only three things that can, in a response. Suppose I come to Gary and say, Gary, would you have time for breakfast tomorrow? And there are only three things Gary can say. One is yes, or he can say no. Or he can say, breakfast I'm already booked, maybe lunch. So there is yes, there is no, or there is a counter offer that Gary can make. Now, world would be better for all of us if we get more yeses for our requests than no's or counters. So if we can, what would it mean if we knew the secret to get more yeses for all of our requests? Starting from today to the rest of our lives, whenever we make a request, the chances of getting a yes is higher. Suddenly the world will be different. And I looked back and I've learned a lot from my mentors, and I say the secret goes back to Archimedes. And then I just love what he did. And then when he said, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. And that is where the power is. And that's, if there is one keyword that I want you to remember by the end of this talk, it is the keyword called leverage. And the dictionary definition is the power to influence a person or a situation to achieve a particular outcome. It can be with your customers, it can be with your vendors, it can be with your partners, or it can be with employees, or even it can be with your family members. If you can influence to achieve a particular outcome, then life will be simpler. And I decided there are 7 things that in the elements of leverage. The first one is likability. So likability for me is the next unfair competitive advantage that we have. It is probably the most underestimated thing that it's likability is so touchy-feely that people say, of course, you ask anyone, they think they are likable. But ask the people that are working around them, they may have a different story. So we all know that likable people get things done faster. For some reason, it gets easy for them. In the same note, people who are not likable find it hard. They try to make a request, and then the person who is getting that request may not want to fulfill that request. So if you become more likable, suddenly the world will become easier. And how do we know? So if we want to, because there is no measure for it, there is no scale for likability. On a scale of 10, are you 7, are you 9, and all those things. So how do we know whether we are likable or not? And there is a simple test that I can do this exercise right now. It only takes 2 minutes. And then at the risk of me not being likable, I can do that exercise if you are all open to it. So there are 2 kinds of people. One is called energizers, and you meet with them. By the end of that meeting, you feel good about yourself, not about them, but you feel good about yourself. Somehow there is some energy that it's almost like they have overflowing of energy and they pass on something to you. So they are energizers, and there are lots of them. And there are dissipators, and dissipators are exact opposite. You meet with them, you talk to them, even sometimes you get an email from them, suddenly there is some energy taken out of your life. Somehow there is some extra, there is a weight here, and then you walk and then you feel little tired. And then there are lots of them. So, and all of it, you can't say, I want to live in a world there are only energizers. Sorry, we live in a world where there are both of them. And let's do this simple exercise, and we'll take about 10 seconds, and I want you to close your eyes and think of some energizers in your life. Okay, I'm sure you got at least one person that said, wow, he is an energizer in me. Did everybody get at least one person? Okay, now let's do the same thing, but this time when you close your eyes, I want you to think of dissipators in your life. I'm sure you got at least one person. There may be somebody who is lucky who didn't get anyone, but which is I'll be really happy that if that is the case. But here is the real test. The first two were trick questions actually. It's very easy to get put names, but here is the real question. Suppose I go to 25 of your close friends and then I do the exercise with them. And when your name comes up, on what list will they put your name in? Will they put you in the energizer list or will they put you in the dissipator list? And that is the measure of likability. Because it's easy for me to say energizer, dissipator, energizer. I can pick names, I can do whatever I want. But it is not me who is deciding how likable I am. It is people that are working with me that will decide whether I am likable or not. It's the other way around. So if we can think of what could we do so that imagine this exercise is happening in the minds of those people, and then what list are they putting me in? Because it's not like people who are not likable, they are doing it on purpose. They may not even be thinking about likability and energizer, dissipator, all those things. It's just the way they are, and they are not concerned about the concerns of the other person. The social networking tools will make it easy to become likable. Why? Because you want to build a relationship with some person. He has a blog. All you have to do is go and make a comment that will enhance the value of the blog. Not saying, hey, I like this blog. That won't help him. If you say he is participating in a topic and then you go and say, by the way, in our industry, this is how it works. I like this, and in our industry, this is how it works. Because the person who is writing may not know everything. So may not have the context in what you can bring to the table. So it makes the cost of being likable goes down significantly, but with a strategy. You want to be likable first, and then you want to build a relationship. There are many, many ways. You want to follow someone on Twitter, you can reply back to him, again, enhancing the value of what they are already doing. And if somebody is always helping you to enhance the value that you are bringing, automatically you gravitate towards them, and you build an obligation. You want to do something back to them. So the next one is uncommon and valuable accomplishments. And so let's take the news. I was a journalist before. I worked as a journalist for 3 years. And then my boss, who is the managing editor, he told me only one thing. Any story that I bring, he would say, Raj, is there any drama in it? If it is not, then I don't want to publish it. So he would ask, why is this an exception? Because there are some rules that I say. Exceptions are what makes news. News does not make news. Like if for all of us meeting here is really news. We met here and then there are lots of things that happen. That is not news. But something happens in this room, good or bad, some miracle happens, we see an UFO out of the window or something, suddenly it's news. It's an exception. That's always remember that whatever you see on TV, whatever you read in the newspaper is typically an exception. It is not news. If it is simple news, we will get bored. Nobody will read that newspaper. Second, uncommon stuff creates news, but it does not mean much. And I will give you some examples here. Uncommon and valuable stuff creates news, and it also creates movements. And I will give you some examples. This uncommon stuff is the world's probably the heaviest man. It's 635 pounds. It's uncommon. It gets into the Guinness Book of World Records. You will probably be disgusted seeing him, but that's it. It stops there. You probably might say, I saw the photo of this guy is 635 pounds, but he won't do anything. It does not mean much. Or this guy who is disfiguring his head by putting some stuff is like a hellraiser kind of thing. Again, it's uncommon, but does not mean much. But if it is uncommon and valuable, take iPhone for example, it's uncommon because the phones existed for a long time, but iPhone came along and said, the phone need not be just a phone, it can be a music player, and it's just not a simple music player, you can carry 10,000 songs, right? So that's uncommon and valuable. Or it can be a Kindle, and Kim was showing his Kindle, and it's uncommon and valuable. I mean, I bought this Kindle, and then I read about between 1 and 2 books a week. Now I can read between 2 and 4 books. Why? You'll laugh at this. It's very easy to flip the pages in a Kindle. You click, and then it's just, you can be so fast, it's blazingly fast. And then I don't have to remember where I left off because the Kindle remembers it for me. So I can switch it on, and then I can start reading. And the best thing is, when I'm driving, I can just plug it to the speaker, and then the Kindle will read it for me. So it's uncommon and valuable. The books existed for a long time. So if there is anything, like Taj Mahal is one of my favorite examples. It took tens of years to build it, but people go there, watch it all the time. So the key is, if you want to create something uncommon and get a premium, you should not wish for that to be easy. Why? Anything that is easy, so everybody can do it and it becomes common, right? Social networks are exactly the same thing. It seems like, hey, everybody is creating a blog, why not create one? Okay, it's easy, which means we can create it in 5 minutes, which means everybody can create it in 5 minutes. The moment everybody can create it, it becomes common. So having a blog itself is not uncommon. It's not something we are walking the extra mile, but what you write in the blog, what is that thought leadership that you can bring, that's where the difference happens. So anytime you want premium for any of your services, products or anything, don't wish for that to be easy, because if it is easy, everybody can do it. And then suddenly it becomes common, and then the price drops. So the key to remember is, the best way using all the social networks is to be remarkable. And there is so much noise on social networks. The key to remember is that because of the noise, if you are the signal, your signal gets amplified. You should not worry that there is noise. Why? Because this noise will amplify the signal that you bring to the table. But what to remember is, what is that signal you are bringing to the table? For example, Boris here talks about managing strategic accounts. If we go and look at how many blogs talk about managing accounts strategically, there won't be much. So Boris, if you start looking at, okay, let me start giving away everything that I know about managing strategic accounts, one option to think is, oh, if I give away everything, why would I come to my business? That is one way to think about it. But typically what happens is that the person who is reading it is not reading it in his context. It will all be generic, and then they read it and say, wow, this is a lot of information. How do I apply it to my business? Maybe I should call Boris. And that's where it starts. You give a lot, and then people think, you know what, this is very good, but I may still need some help applying it to my specific situation, and I will go and reach the best. And it will also pre-qualify people that are willing to pay more. It's very simple, because if they are not willing to pay more, they will say, you know what, let Boris keep writing, I will keep reading, and then it's free stuff for me. And they would not have paid Boris the right money anyway. So the people who will pay less are already eliminated. Fine, they are getting free stuff, so be it. They would not have paid anyway. So you might as well allow them to get free stuff. And the people who will reach out are already pre-qualified. They are almost half sold, because they have read about you, and then they know more about you. They know your thinking, and they are almost sure that you will provide the highest value. So the negotiations are very less. Rarely they negotiate on price and those kinds of things. So that's that. You give a lot, and then you get a lot more, both literally and figuratively. The next one is creative generosity. Now, whenever I pick a topic, generosity, there is an angle to some charity, and there is sacrifice, there is giving, and then many times I talk about this topic, and people think that first I have to make something. I should have enough, only then I will give. So first let me stand somewhere so that I can start this process. So I use the term creative generosity, where you can be giving, but you can also be getting right at the same time. So the two things to remember is that everyone in the world needs help. In fact, a recession kind of thing, people need a lot more help. Second thing to remember is that everyone loves a gift, right? I mean, think about even me and you or anyone, every time you got a gift, you said, wow, this is cool, I want to open it, I want to see what's in there, and then it just feels good. So the first one, everyone needs help. Second one, everybody loves a gift. Combine the two and imagine if your product or service gives a gift in the area where they need most help. We got a winning combination. So they need help, they love a gift. How can we give a gift in the area of their most needed help? And that's what the social networks makes it very easy. Why? Because if you do it once, like a blog or Twitter or Facebook or anything, if you provide valuable help to your target audience in the areas where they need the most help, suddenly you amplify your capacity to do more. Unlike if you want to help one-on-one, then it takes a lot of your time. If you do it through social networks, you take the same amount of time, but your reach is longer. Now, I pick an example of one project that I did. It's called the quote project. I didn't misspell it. Quote is a term that I used for a question that provokes thought. I think Sterling, you contributed to that. So this was in 2006 when I have been blogging for 4+ years now. And then at some point in time, I wanted to make sure that I want to take the blog to the next level. How will I take the blog to the next level? Going back to my journalism days, here is my story. I became a journalist when I was 13 years old. My first book was published when I was 13, and then I immediately got a job as a journalist. And then I thought, hey, if I can write a book, it will be easy to write newspaper articles, because book is harder, right? So I started writing, and then the very first article I took to my editor, and he said, he read the article and he said, this is good, but I think we ran out of space or something. And then he said, but if we could publish it, here is what I would change. Why don't you change it? Just it will be good practice. And I thought, of course, at that time I believed him that there is no space in the paper. Otherwise, it would have been published, kind of thing. And then this went on for 6 months. None of my articles were published, but there would always be some story where he would say, this is something happened, this is something, but if we could publish it, this is what I would change. And 6 months later, one article, he said, this will go. And then he told me on that day, Raj, I mean, over the 6 months, you wrote a lot of articles. All of them sucked. None of them were good. But I didn't want you to stop trying. So I said there was no space, and something happened, and there is in the newspaper business, the latest always gets priority. There is some a political figure is coming, and then you need to cover it, then an article. So I used to make up stories, but it took you 6 months, but finally you got there. So the point I'm trying to bring is, with social networks, the bar is lower. Because with I don't have to have an editor. I get an idea, and while I'm out, and then if there is a Wi-Fi here, I can post something. Like, the bar is very, very low. You don't have to think. So basically, what happened for me over the 6 months if when I tell this story to people, people say, oh, you don't have to worry so much. I mean, why take all the trouble? Start a blog and start a Twitter account and you can write. But what has not changed is how do we get people to come to your blog? It's not easy. You can write, you can keep writing hundreds of articles, but how will you get someone to come and read it? Because everybody is doing the same thing. They are Twittering, they are putting on Facebook, they are writing blogs and everything, but the fact that it still takes an effort, it's almost you need to seduce someone to come and say, here, I have a blog, come and read it. And if they don't get enough value, they won't come and read it. Right? The hard work is still there. It's just that the perception is that it is easy on social networks. But everything else that I went through for 6 months, it's still there. We need to go through it. But the cost of the actual implementation of it is, the cost of that is lower. So by the time I started this, I had already blogged for about 18 months and I was getting reasonably good traffic, but I said, I have to do something, take this to the next level. So what will I do? I mean, the gifts that I can give, I can only give so much. But you know what? There are so many smart people, really, really smart people. If I can get them to contribute a small piece via my blog, suddenly the blog can go to the next level. And why would they do it? Because they already have blogs of their own. Why would they come and do something? I created a series called the Quote Project. Quote is a question that provokes thought. So I asked about 75 people. I asked them, what would be one question if somebody asked themselves, can change their life this year? What would be one question that somebody should ask themselves? And I started a series where people, all they had to do is reply back to me via email. And what was that question? I made the cost extremely low for them to participate. And by that time, I had blogged for about 18 months. So it was not going to be a waste, because there will be some people who would read that question. And the questions that I got back were so touching, and I picked 5 of them. And this is the blog post announcing the Quote for the Day series. This is from my blog. And here is one question. John Battle is the author of the book The Search. And here is his question. He says, what do you care about enough to defend in conversations with people that you respect? I mean, you read this question, it's not easy for you to answer it. It's not as simple as 4, 65, or yesterday, those kinds of things. It has to be something that you will definitely think about before answering. Every single one of those questions were like that. I'll give you one more example. This is from Peter Block, who wrote the book Flawless Consulting. So he said, what is the question, if you had the answer to, would set you free? The answer will be another question that he is asking. What would be that question that would set you free? And again, it's not something that you can just answer it. It's something that will make you think. And this is from Kathy Sierra, and she says, what are you taking for granted? And again, the quick response will be that none, I don't take anything for granted. But if you think harder, it may be one of your customers, your employees, some family member, it can be your friend. It's something that we are taking for granted. If you think hard enough, you might find that answer, and you might think, should I be taking this for granted, or can I do something about it? The next one is by a person called Mike Wagner. He's a strategy guru, and he says, what do you see when you see people? Again, an important question. You see somebody, do you see them as a threat? Do you see them as a friend? Do you see them as a partner? Do you see them as a potential customer, potential partner? Do you see them as one more person? Or do you not care about that person? What do you see? What do you see when you see people? Next, this is by David Meister, who wrote some number of books on leading professional services firms. What do I have to do to earn and deserve the key relationships that are going to get me where I want to go? And the both earn and deserve is very important. And it is connected to the what are you taking for granted. Many times we think that, just because of who we are, people should help us. Why not? I mean, that's what human beings do. They should help each other, and then I am here and I'm asking for help. Why not? Why should they not help? Kind of thing. But in real life, remember that everybody is taking care of their concerns. Like they have their own stuff going on. So unless you do something to earn and deserve the key relationships, you may not have them. We can perceive that, oh, I'm good friends with this person, but the perceiving is, although they say perception is reality, perception is not really reality when it comes to all these things. You have to earn and deserve it. And David's question is, what do I have to do? Which basically each person has to do something different. The question just begs you to think about what should you do next to earn and deserve this. The next one is a powerful personal brand. How do you build a powerful personal brand to leverage whatever you are bringing to the marketplace? I talk about the boxing game, and I think all of us are playing a boxing game all the time. So I asked Gary, Gary, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? And as you start talking, you say broadband. I say, oh, I think I know. Gary is broadband. I put a box around Gary. The moment you say, Gary, I am from Minneapolis, I say, oh, broadband Minneapolis. I put another box. By the moment he starts explaining, I am trying to generalize and try to say, where should I put, what box should I put Gary in? And as a revenge, what will Gary do? You say, oh, so Raj, what do you do? I'm an entrepreneur. I say, oh, he's an entrepreneur. I put a box, entrepreneur there. But by the way, I also write books. Oh, it's an entrepreneur, also write book. Put another box, put some color to it, kind of thing. So why? Because if I go out of this room and somebody asks me, who did you meet? I say, I met Gary. Who is Gary? I say, he's in the broad. Okay, I got it. In their mind, they already put another box about what Gary is. Why? Because nobody has time to think. They immediately want to box you because they think they already know it. So especially anybody in the services business, you go and tell them, I'm a financial consultant. In their mind, they think they already know what a financial consultant does. Whatever you bring to the table, it does not matter because they already put that in that box based on their awareness of what a financial consultant will do. You take anything, you say a doctor, they put you in the doctor box. You cannot escape it. That's why I said we are always playing a boxing game. You might as well play it well so that you can win this boxing game. And how do you do that? Is through building a personal brand. What is, people tell me that, I'm not big on personal branding, leave it to the celebrities kind of thing. My answer is that you cannot not have a personal brand. It's not like you have an option to choose, oh, personal brand, yes, no, maybe kind of thing. Everybody has it. It's a personal brand is your personal promise to the world and the marketplace. What do people think when they remember you? What do people think when they remember your company? That is the brand. What do you bring to the marketplace? So you cannot not bring anything to the marketplace, which means you cannot ignore a personal brand. So if that is the case, how do you build one? And I have a simple framework to think about it. It's called the 4D framework. I'm from a software engineering background, so I put all in some frameworks and everything. So the first one is discover. First we need to discover something about ourselves, and that can be very easy to discover if you answer these two questions. The first one is, how do you want to be remembered, which is, what is your legacy going to be? So once you know this, then you almost know, like you know your destination. Then you can map out the route. Once you know you need to go to, let's say, India, you know for sure that you cannot walk, right? Then the mode of transportation will come. Probably we need to fly. And then depending on where you are going in India, flying may not be the only option. You have to take a train, and then depending on where you are going, if it is a remote place, it will be a bullock cart. The last journey will be in a bullock cart, right? So once it's like knowing your legacy, what you want your legacy to be, you know the destination. Whatever it is that you need to do, whatever is the mode of transportation, that comes next. And for that journey to be meaningful, the next question is important. Where do your passions intersect the market needs? Like, I love to do something, but is there an intersection where for whatever it is that I am loving to do, would somebody pay for it? And if we can find that intersection, the journey towards that living a legacy becomes very easy. I mean, it becomes enjoyable. Almost it will be like, thank God it's Monday morning kind of thing. So that's the first one, is the discovery phase. The next one is to design it. And whenever I talk about personal brand, again, people always go back to Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and the Richard Branson and those kinds of things. I think that we don't have to, it's good to aim for those kinds of places, but we don't have to start thinking about, oh my God, it's overwhelming. The easiest way to think is, what is the target market I can serve? It's very simple. I am a financial consultant. I need to work with people in Silicon Valley who are middle-aged and who are making between $100,000 to $1 million a year. That's my target market. And once I do that, the next question is, what is that something unique? We talked about uncommon and valuable. What is that something that is uncommon and valuable that I can bring to this particular marketplace? And we need to design that. And that's the, once we know the legacy, you know where you are going. And when you know that your passions intersect with market needs, the journey becomes easy. Next step is to spot different milestones in the journey, and that's the design phase. Next one is to deploy it. This is where the social networks and all of them will come in. But if you don't do the discovery and the design, trying to use a social network will be like just getting into a bus and saying, give me a ticket kind of thing. I don't know where I'm going, but please give me a ticket. And it does not make much sense. If you have done the discovery and do the design, the cost of deploying is what goes down using social networks. How do you do this? Do you use a blog? Do you use Twitter? And then do you use Facebook? Do you use LinkedIn? Those kinds of things. With whom? I always say most of my investments are based on who is building a business rather than what they are building, because I think being an entrepreneur for a number of years, I know that in the first 18 months, people will change their business model at least 3 times. So if that is the case, then what business am I investing in? Because anyway, is going to change the model at least 3 times. I might as well invest in people. That's why with whom becomes important, and then comes the what. Like, how do we do it, with whom will we do it, and then comes the what. And the last one is to deal with it. It's very, very important. The moment you make a promise to the world, the marketplace automatically expects that you will fulfill the promise. If you don't, you will not only lose trust, the very next promise that you make, they will not believe it. You make a promise, you fulfill it, and you keep on making promises and fulfilling promises. And the next time you make a promise, if you have done this again and again, people will automatically trust you. But if you break it, that's where people will, even if you make the next promise that you will surely fulfill, but people don't know whether you will do it or not. And underlying all these things is the catalyst, which is the relevance. Anytime you lose relevance to the marketplace needs, then none of this will matter. Discover, design, deploy, deal, none of this will matter, because it's not relevant. And when I look back, my next book is called Upbeat. And the reason I wrote this book is because of what happened to me when I built my first business. And I started this company. Of course, Sterling knows this very well. He helped me resurrect it, so he knows it really well. So when I started my first company, it was 2000, and it was a recruitment company. And you'll laugh at this, because I can get the timing so wrong that it's not even funny. Like everybody were firing people, and I thought, because in the last company, before I started the company, I had recruited about 1,000 people. I said, and I had seen some things broken in the recruitment process. So I said, hey, there is a hole here, and then I can fill that hole, right? But I forgot that there is also something called timing, right? And so the moment we came up with this sort of, at that time, uncommon and valuable offer, about 25 companies signed up and said, oh, this, yeah, if whenever we hire, we will use your service. The problem is nobody ever hired because there was no, everybody, we had like thousands of people in our database saying, oh, we would love to work, but there was no work, right? So, and it is at that time, people said that, hey, we are in a recession. I said, it may be, but I don't have time to deal with it because I am dealing with my own micro problem. I know there is a macro problem out there, but I have no time to deal with it. The recession can be there, but I have my mini problem. So what I did is that made one rule in my company, that we will not talk news during the office hours. Because anytime I open news, there is only negative news. So I said, just during the office hours, we'll refrain from talking about news. And the moment they go out of the office or during lunchtime or anything, they can do it, but just during office hours, we stop. And that boosted the productivity like anything. And once we had that time, because we can talk about, at the end of this talk, we can start talking about how bad the economy is. And we can be talking about it until the end of this whole day. And still we will not have made anything. So once I got back the time, right? So because we are not spending time on discussing things that we can't control, we had some opportunities that we could deal with. And our CTO at that time said, this recruitment is not going anywhere. Why don't you get me some projects, I can build it. And I said, but we don't have money to buy the software. So our CTO said, no problem, I'll download some open source stuff, and don't worry about it. First you bring the project, you don't worry about implementing it. So I said, okay, because I had to put food on the table. So we got some development projects, and our CTO used some open source stuff, and it was really good, and we started making some money. And I still remember but I still continued to pitch the recruitment services because it didn't go into my head that the timing was wrong. So I continued to keep on selling the next generation recruitment services. So it was with a large semiconductor company that I was pitching this recruitment service. And I said, we qualify candidates. The people who qualify these candidates are really smart. They have built some stuff on open source and all those things. So the person who was the managing director, he said, stop, did you say open source? I said, yeah, I was not prepared to make that pitch. He said, that's interesting. So let me call some people. Can you show something? And I said, yeah. And of course, I had everything. So then he brought a person with long hair, with everything, and he must be a really big open source geek. He said, oh, I heard that you are doing some open source stuff. Can you show me something? I said, okay, this was not part of the plan, but hey, why not? So I started demoing and said, this is very interesting. So can you guys develop something in Zope? I said, the answer is yes, but can you spell Zope? Because because I didn't know what it was, but I said, somebody is paying me money, that's what we'll develop. And I said, I thought it's SOAP, but it was ZOP, it's a content management system. And he said, but I don't think, because the next question gave out a hint that I didn't know what I was talking. Said, but I can give you a test project. But if you do it well, then we'll think about it. I said, yeah, no problem. So I called, the moment I got out, I called our CTO and I said, whatever this ZOP is, we need to become experts like right now. It's not like yesterday, but right now we need to become experts. So long story short, we became an open source content management system company, and we changed the name to Signex. And that's what I was leading for the 5 years. And if at any time I didn't change the focus based on the market needs, there would not have been that company. It's basically, I always say, it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of the most adaptable. Because there is nothing like fittest. Earlier, during the industrial age, the fittest meant that whoever had the strongest arms, right? But now it does not matter. It's whoever can think, and then whoever can be adaptable, they are the ones that are the strongest. And my last company was an example that we kept changing our focus And until that time, until I got the sweet spot, like whatever we have uncommon, which is the open source stuff, which was just starting off, until I made it valuable to the marketplace, there was no play for us. And if I have to summarize something, a powerful personal brand will help others box you right, because they are going to do it anyway. The moment you speak, they are already boxing. In fact, they're just looking for keywords, right? So while you are talking, if they pick a keyword and say, oh, you're a consultant, oh, they already got it. Many times they stop. And if the social networks, like the ebooks, manifestos, like one of my ebooks was downloaded about 160,000 times. Honestly, I know that about 150,000 of them would not have read it. Why? Because it's free. They say, okay, whenever I have time, I will read it. Now with Kindle coming in, probably there will be more people who will read it, because you can just send an email and then you can read it, or you can ask Kindle to read it for you. So that may be an option. But earlier, people just take stuff. But all I am interested in those 10,000 people who made an attempt to read it, and the 1,000 people who really read it, and then there might be an opportunity for us to do something together. So the fact that not a lot of people will read it should not stop you from creating an ebook. It's the small majority of people that will read it. Those are the ones that are pre-qualified to do business or partner or those kinds of things. And I talked about manifestos. I don't know, there is a site called changethis.com, and I'll send you all the links maybe to Sterling. So Change This, they produce manifestos from thought leaders. And if your manifesto is published there, at least 10,000 people will download it, at least. One of my manifestos there has been downloaded 81,000 times. Now that's like free marketing, right? But it takes time to get in, to change this. But each one of you can bring something so unique that it should not be hard for you to get in. And then, of course, books, it will take about 12 to 18 months. And but it's well worth it. Just because it takes 12 to 18 months puts a barrier to somebody else who will not take that effort to do it. And then there is video, the webinars, all of them, the cost of doing it is significantly lower. Like if you want to create a newsletter, use a service like Aweber, AWEBER. If you do it, it's like $150. You can send unlimited newsletters to unlimited number of people. Like it's $150. The cost is very low. And the speaking engagements, whatever is your topic, there is somebody who would want to learn more if they can hear something really valuable. So where do you start? You start with nonprofits. You basically offer yourself up and say, these are the people that I want to reach out. Don't pay me. I'll just come and speak and make something good for you. If they still don't buy, you say, by the way, I have written this book. I will give this book away for free. Help me, allow me to speak here, kind of thing.